Hello, my name is Robert Rogers, and I am talking about the Molly Tibbetts case that happened back in 2018. A quick explanation of who Molly Tibbetts is and why and what happened to her is that she was a student from the University of Iowa who returned home for the summer back in July 18th, 2018, and she was currently staying over at her boyfriend's house as a pet sitter. And during the evening time, she would go for her usual jog around the hometown of Brooklyn, Iowa. But the next day, when she didn't arrive for work, concern about where she was started with her coworkers, calling family members asking, "Is Molly okay? Is she sick?" And this is where the panic started with with the coworkers, and then continued with the family. The family would arrive at the boyfriend's house and would enter the home, showing that there was no signs of forced entry by anyone, and the house was completely empty. And by this point, concern about where Molly was drastically started taking over the family and the community of Brooklyn, Iowa. Considering that Molly considered her jogging time her personal time, there was no way to figure out where exactly she was. There was no way to tell if she went somewhere else without telling anyone, or any way to like reach out to her, since during the time she would turn off her phone and just run for a brief period of time. Uh, when trying to figure out where exactly Molly was last seen, she was caught in the very background of a home camera, and it was revealed that a car would pass by her and then do a U-turn to return back to her, and this car would be later identified to belonging to Christian Rivera. And after police questioned Christian about where exactly Molly was, he would lead them to her body, showing that Molly was stabbed to death in a cornfield, and show that police would inform the family over a month later about Molly's death. Christian Rivera was then sent to life in prison on August 21st, 2018, and the Brooklyn of Iowa remembers her by hanging ribbons and doing a Mile for Molly run every year. So why did I find this case so interesting to begin with? The first reason is that there is an unknown relationship between offender and victims. Normally there is always a connection between offenders and victims. Either they know each other personally, or the victim looks similar to someone the offender knew. But in this case there isn't any of that, and it brings to attention of offenders can just attack someone without any personal reason. There were theories about the offender not being the actual offender, and that Christiana Rivera was just blamed for the crime in some way. There were politicians moves that were trying to convince that Molly's death could have been prevented if like legal action, if immigration enforcement was more focused, and the family sort of did not like that. And then there's the town's remembrance, as they try to remember someone that was liked by the community and was just randomly taken out one day. So let's go into a little bit of the unknown relationship between the victim and offender. The first thing that I commented on is that the victims and offenders are normally always known for each other. Either they know each other personally, or the victim just looks similar to someone the offender knows, and the victim is targeted because of that similarity. But when it comes to this case, there isn't any connection between Christian Rivera's and Molly Tibbetts. The only connection that we have is that Christian Rivera's found Molly attractive, and is the reason why he chose to do a U-turn to go back and talk to her. But during that communication between the two parties, Molly threatened to call the police. Yet Molly threatened to call the police if Christian Rivera did not leave, and this resulted in her death in the instance. police investigation, as I said, concluded that Christian Rivera's had a sexual interest in her, and it sort of, while yes, this could be considered true, it leads to like I find it interesting that it was you have a person that is in a car by himself. He can easily drive away. There's no reason to get attacked after being rejected. But you have this situation where it is this case where the guy where Christian did not take the rejection well and attacked Molly in some and out of like either anger or self-rejection, and this sort of like brings the interest of why did he do this. There's no reason to like overreact this much, and it could possibly just be because Molly was isolated and there was no one there to basically help her if she needed it, so he could take advantage of it if he wanted to. But that's like where the mysterious part of this victim and offender kind of into play. Another one that I talked about was theories. A very popular theory that I saw was that Christian Rivera's was theorized to have been a scapegoat, considering that Molly was found in a cornfield being stabbed to death. There's no reason that a person who got rejected for asking out someone would take this drastic measure of killing into account. So there was theories that Christian just happened to be a illegal immigrant that could take the blame and no one would bat another eye, and the actual killers of Molly could get away without being any prosecution. The picture of Christian Rivera's with the headphones on is a translation that was being run through court. He understood a little bit of English, but he wasn't fluent in it, so he had to have the translation of what was being talked about in court coming through to him. And this is like the more interesting part because Christian Rivera did not have any criminal record at the time. He was a clean slate person who was just working, and then he just happened to see Molly and grew an interest towards her, and then it resulted in her death. This is like that's like the only theory I've ever seen of it, as he was an scapegoat. Someone else attacked Molly a little later on, and there's no real evidence to prove that Christian Rivera's was an scapegoat, but the method of how Molly died is sort of the reason why this theory was popular during the time. The third topic that I talked about was a political usage. As many people know, during the 2018 immigration was a very big talk. The border was being more secured in a sense. They were more pushing trying to secure the border, and the Trump administration and ICE service tried to use Molly's death as like here is an actual reason why we need to push for a stronger border, because Christian Rivera's was an illegal immigrant. They were trying to push this idea that like this is what can happen. Molly's death shouldn't have happened at all, and they were just trying to use Molly's death as a movement instead of actually trying to remember her death and be sincere about it. This caused Molly's parents to reach to like speak out about this and saying we don't like the idea that Molly's death is affecting an entire population because of one individual, and they did not stand for the movement or any ideas of trying to use Molly's death to justify a stronger immigration enforcement. Because of their speaking out, no policy was actually pushed to enforce a stronger immigration. It was more of they voiced their concern and politicians backed off about the family's traumatic experience. When it comes to remembrance, the town did a miles from Molly Tibbetts where they all wore her favorite color teal, and they just ran miles to remember her in some way and fashion, as many people try to remember their loved ones that have either died or have gone missing. They always try to keep themselves in remembrance, make sure that they won't be forgotten like many others. When it comes to around town, there were teal ribbons that were tied around the buildings of Brooklyn, Iowa to like remember her to not travel alone because of her isolation choice of running. This also caused a giant population of running in groups or don't be alone in the community for a little bit, where everyone chose to stick together and at least run with someone else or hang out with someone else. As long as you were with someone, you would be considered good. There were more reports about to be more reportive if you see something wrong instead of waiting until the last minute where it's too late started to grow around this time, and it showed that the community really wanted to improve of what happened to Molly, considering that she just got attacked for no very good reason, and the community felt like they needed to uphold their accountability of what happened to Molly, considering that most of the evidence of what happened to Molly was scattered around the town, and it wasn't until a little bit later that people started to reach out, started communicating with law enforcement to start piecing together the story. And that's about it. These are the references that I got.